Roll call, please, Nikki.
Ms. Davis?
Here.
Ms. Hill?
Here.
Mrs. Hopper?
Here.
Mr. Schindler?
Here.
Dr. Ciartino?
Here.
Mr. Seltzer?
Here.
Mr. Todd?
Here. May I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the agenda for the Board of Education calendar hearing as scheduled for April 10th, 2019?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And wow, Amy's right there, automatically at the podium. Good job. Amy. Thank you for joining us. Don't thank him yet, it's not on. Now it's on.
All right. Well, congratulations, President Todd, Vice President Hopper, and congratulations, Ms. Hill and Mr. Ciartino for your reelection. We are here tonight to have a public hearing for the 2020-2021 school calendar. And we had a work session last month where we gave the board a draft calendar. And we have just a brief presentation, some of the highlights of the process, and then where the calendar ended up. Oh, I forgot the clicker. I think it's on. Here we go. So here is the calendar development timeline. I would like to highlight an additional step was put in place for feedback in April, and that was feedback from the PTO leadership team. We usually share the proposed calendar with them before we bring it to the Board of Education work session, but because of snow days and having to reschedule a couple times, we weren't able to do that. We did get positive feedback from PTO leadership on the proposed calendar. Some of the calendar committee work included ensuring that we met the state guidelines, making sure that we had an increase in time for professional development and PLC work, making sure that we had 191 contract days for our teachers, and that we honored the 2015 and 2018 parent and staff survey. Again, this is just some information about how many respondents we had to the 2018 survey from our parents, non-certified and certified staff. And then here are just a few of the results. Parents and staff both preferred an early release over a late start. Parents and staff both strongly preferred a Friday over, followed by a Wednesday for early release. And then we did collect some information on late start, what days were preferred by both groups. We also received some feedback regarding late start, early release, or half days or full days for professional development. These were some of the calendar considerations from the 2015 survey. We always look at our starting and end dates. There's a strong emphasis in trying to have as much time in the summer for families as possible, having at least try to have 10 days to 2 weeks during our winter break, having the spring break in March. If we are going to have development sessions, trying to have long weekends for families. So those are some of the things that we were able to build into the calendar. And then here are some things that we provide for academic and activity needs. One of the main things is that we like to have testing completed before winter break. So some of the recommendations, they're the same as I shared last month. We do have a change from late start to early release. So that is definitely something that we are recommending to the Board of Education because we have positive feedback from all groups. We do have an increase of the number of late start days, that would be early release days for PLCs. And then we also have an increase in half days for professional development. In addition, we have added a fourth day to the calendar for teacher work days at the beginning of the year due to the numerous trainings that they need to take prior to the start of the school year. So this is just a summary. We have 158 full student attendance days, 10 early release days, 3 half days for professional development, 6 other half days, for a total of 177 student attendance days, 1089 student instructional hours. We have 4 days for school preparation and a total of 191 teacher contract days. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
What are the other 6 half-days?
Go ahead.
Most of those are high school final days, and then also typically at the end of each semester, it's a half day for all students, K-12, so those are where many of those half days fall.
How does our calendar compare with neighboring districts, specifically early release versus late start?
The majority of the districts have early release. And yeah, do you have the number? Were there probably a dozen at least?
I don't have the exact number, but we did, thanks to Amy Gerken-Coates, we actually did a survey of neighboring districts to try to find out what are you doing. While we saw that there were some districts who were also doing the late start, we saw that a greater number were doing early release. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but we did see that the majority of districts who are doing either of the two, more are doing the early release compared to the late start.
With respect to the placement of spring break, is it possible to see what other districts are doing? Do we just kind of have to plan our spring break? I'm trying to think of teachers that might have children in other districts and other situations that might arise where it'd be good to have congruency there.
Right, we do try. We do look at our neighboring district, Rockwood, mainly because we have a lot of shared programs with community education, but sometimes the development of our calendar process is different from theirs, so we get their input. We don't know where theirs is going to end up. Some years it works, some years it doesn't, and we do have a lot of employees that live in other school districts and would like to have the same week as well. I mean, the only way we could accomplish that is if, an organization, like Ed Plus or at the state would say this is the standard week for spring break.
One of the things I just heard on the news this morning is some legislation that's being proposed for a later start in August or even around Labor Day. Now, I'm not proposing that for this calendar, of course, but have you had discussions about starting later in the school year in future years and how we might accommodate that? And it looks like, according to legislation, it was like not to be more than 14 days prior to the first Monday in September. So it looks like we're almost close to that anyway, so it wouldn't be too much of a change. But I'm just wondering if you've had discussions about that, if you're thinking about that for future calendars.
If the legislation becomes law, then what we would need to do is pull our calendars back and then amend our calendars to meet state law. We might look at, in the 1920 school year, we do have some flexibility utilizing House Bill 1606, counting the number of hours. So we might be able to pare back some hours to meet the time frame without adjusting the calendar too much, but we would have to go back and re-examine and then possibly amend calendars. They usually, when they implement something, sometimes it's like an August 28th mandated date that you implement whatever change is. Because it's a school calendar, I would hope that they would give us at least a year to make the adjustment. So it would most likely happen in the 2021 school year.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So how many snow days again?
We had to account for hours in this, so we did account for over 36 hours of snow days.
Which would be, we figured about 7.
About 7.
7 days. Gives a little bit more. Yeah. I think the state has a good move to go to hours. I think that helped the calendar committee. And
Yeah,
And what's the state minimum requirement for hours?
1,044.
And we're at
We're
1089?
at 1086,
1086.
or at 1089, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay. May I have a motion and a second that the calendar hearing be adjourned?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank
And
you.
Thank you, Amy. And we will now be adjourned until our official board meeting, regular scheduled board meeting starts at 7 PM.